my darlings. I'm Selena Collins and my kids are in bed and we are here to chat because of it. I don't know what I'm doing here tonight. So my writing journey over the last millennia, it seems, has been insane. I thought it would be great to just talk about my story a little bit. Self-publishing is really scary for a lot of people, and I think sometimes it just helps to know what people did and what they did really well, what they would have done differently, how they were successful. Like how did you go from nothing to a book that's in the hands of hundreds of people in the first, few months that it's published, which is exactly what I did. I will say, full disclosure, I do have a very strong background in marketing. It's what I went to college for. It's what I have done in corporate setting. I worked in the tech support side of things, but it was for a marketing company. And I owned an agency for several years and did that full time. Was the sole income provider for my family. So I'm not, somebody who has marketing experience. I had a full business. Anyway, I say that specifically because there's so many snake oil salesmen, especially with marketing, who they know how social media works, they watched a TikTok class or whatever, and will tell you they know what they're doing and they don't. Anyway, off my soapbox. I say that disclaimer though because my marketing background and my experience in marketing definitely helped me. So I had a lot to learn in terms of how to actually write a successful book, or write a book successfully, I should say. And in terms of like self-publishing, I had a lot I had to learn. But the marketing side of things, I had already worked with many authors, and I had worked on the periphery of some publishing projects with some publishing apps and things like that. So that long story, not short at all. This is gonna be a nightmare to edit. I'm so rambling. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. Okay, that's my disclaimer. Let's get into it. It was COVID. Everybody was going stir crazy. I needed some kind of a creative outlet. I was so exhausted. I owned a marketing agency pre-COVID. And so COVID happened and all my clients in the span of 3 weeks put all of their contracts on hold and kept them on hold for the first few months of the pandemic. While everything kind of settled down, everybody panicked. And nobody knew what was going on and what to do business-wise. We were just surviving. In the middle of all of that, I needed something that was just for me. I just needed an escape. I think there was a part of me that just wanted to feel like I was accomplishing something, because so much of what I was doing in my day-to-day was spinning my wheels. So I decided I was going to finally write a book. I don't remember exactly how I found it, but I stumbled onto Reedsy. I really liked that I could set a writing goal and a date and configure my writing days, and it kept me on track and it tracked my word count. I didn't want to have to do any of that manually. I really liked having that. So I started a book in Reedsy. I outlined something. I read so much on writing craft. I did a lot of reading on Save the Cat method, on plotting. I watched an Alexis Donnelly video. I remember watching tons of her videos. I actually watched a lot of Lindsay Ellis videos. Film and media critique is incredibly helpful for dissecting stories in general, whether that's in film media or written media. Fix my top again. I think that's going to be a common problem. Serves me. I wore the wrong bra. Dream of Me was mapped out. I started writing it. I set an outrageous goal for myself and I hit it.
I think.
I'm pretty sure I hit my goal. Then I spent the next month editing it. I had the wonderful help of a ton of beta readers and ARC readers. I did go over my manuscript like a million times. I edited it in Google, edited it in Reedsy, I printed it off and I edited it. I changed edits from my beta readers. I did it to the best of my personal abilities, which granted is not perfect. And I hated that when I sent it to print, of course, I open my first author copy and I find a freaking typo. Ooh, it's fine. It was my first book. And something that I really stuck to, something that we talk about in marketing, and it's your MVP, your minimally viable product. And basically the goal of that is to map out and produce and create the first iteration of something that is the most minimal version that it can be. Because if you try to do everything perfect and have all the features packed in and everything into this one product right away, that becomes a very big barrier to creating the product. And you run the risk of packing in features that people might not really want. So I didn't invest hugely in editing or cover design or anything initially, because this was my very first book. I really just wanted to know, did people want to read what I had to write? I was very aware that sharing my journey and connecting with other authors is going to be really helpful for my success as an author, but also that it was going to give me the sense of community that I knew that I would need. I knew that that sense of community was going to be really, really important for my success and not feeling isolated. And so I tried to make other writer friends. I tried to make other author friends. And it really, really helped. I think, like, I was able to go on TikTok Live and do writing sprints with people. I was able to make friends with people who were kind of up and coming in this industry with me. And that was really, really beneficial, especially when it comes to motivation. And I think that is a huge contributor to building out my street team and my beta readers and my ARC readers for prepping for the debut, the actual publication and launch of my book. And it was wonderful because they were honest with their feedback. And I really liked being able to hear, you know, this worked really well in the story and I really love this, and like, I hated this character. I love that because, you know, some of those things were intentionally done. Some of those things were just happy accidents, and other things were just good for me to learn as an author. While all of this is happening, while I'm editing and stuff, I'm also working on the optics of my book. So I designed my website. I made sure that my social media presences were on point. I was posting, making videos, and I was designing the book cover. I will be the first one to advocate for authors investing time and money into their books. However, I don't shit on self-designed covers because I did it. Let me grab the first book. Get our dress adjusted.
Because we're princesses.
This was my book the way I first published it. I designed this in Canva. I designed the back, and I used the free formatting from Reedsy. And you can see in this B-roll that I will show you now, you can see the differences between how my book looks now and how I published it. So a few things that I didn't really realize up front was how white paper is not what I wanted. I thought white was just kind of the default, but what I found was white is kind of more a textbook. It is actually white, and so it was really hard on the eyes, and I wasn't a huge fan of the way it ended up looking. I also was continually disappointed with how thin my book was. This thing has almost 90,000 words, which is very standard for romance, but it's so thin. It's so thin, and that always bothered me. So I invested in vellum later, and I did some formatting of my own. So, but initially, again, I designed my own cover in Canva, and I was really focused on minimally viable product. What was the minimum I needed to get done to get this actually published? Because I knew the biggest issue with writing is that most people don't publish what they write. I knew I didn't want to go the traditional route. I knew I wanted to self-publish because I'm already entrepreneurially minded. Eventually, I will get an agent and I will put some books out on submission. I'm really excited about that next chapter somewhat in the future. That will be really cool. But I do want to build up my backlist a little bit more. I want to work on some series. I want to get my writing chops honed a little bit more, and I just want to have more examples of my work and build up my audience before I start doing that. Back to debut book. I absolutely cried opening this. I'm pretty sure I snapped at one of my kids too because they were like all up in my personal space and I just couldn't have an emotional moment.
But it was fine. It was fine. It was fine.
My husband had it recorded. That's another part of the story. Anyway, I got it published. There were lots of things I was really, really proud of. Lots of things I was really happy with. Lots of things I wasn't. Lots of things I wanted to do differently. Between publishing this and now, the gist of what has happened is everything that happened in my book, not everything. Some things that happened in my book happened in my real life. If you follow me on TikTok, you already know. But after my book was published, my late husband passed away of an accidental drug overdose. He had unfortunately relapsed after a few years in recovery. We had been separated at the time because of the drug use and some other things that were going on. And it was really sad and really, really difficult. In this book, the main character becomes a widow. And she ends up with her dead husband's best friend. And I'll give you one good guess on who my partner is. It's a little funny.
In a dark humor kind of way.
So,
Bruh.
there's that. I will say that the last 2 years have been the hardest, saddest years of my entire life. I think I was gonna cry. But despite the sadness that I will always carry, I am actually quite happy now. I think it takes an incredible amount of strength to just keep living, because you have to. And I want to enjoy and love my life, and I try not to feel guilty about that. My late husband was so proud of me. And so as I approached figuring out what I wanted to do with this book next, I really thought about him a lot. I wanted to preserve that this was my debut book and it's imperfect. But there were also things I wanted to do better. My little skull friend.
He's gonna just hang out right here.
And so here's what I settled on. Okay? I hired a professional cover designer. I rewrote the blurb on the back. I don't know that I'll ever be happy with blurbs. Blurbs are freaking hard to write. One day I'll hire a professional blurb writer. Until then, y'all are just stuck with me. First thing I did was design a new cover and rewrite the blurb. And so I was really, really pleased with the way the cover came out. I feel like this cover definitely conveys the genre better. And that's something that I think is really, really important for self-published authors, is look to your genre, design to your genre. I think this screams true crime, romancy, paranormal, kind of cover, right? There's something happening here. It's not just a straight up contemporary romance where you have kind of comic book art style characters on the front, right? Kind of think Red, White, and Blue does that. Anyway, cover design was the first thing I did. Then I decided that I didn't want to heavily edit the book. I do believe my writing skills have improved since then. I have taken some writing classes. I've done a lot more practice because I've continued to write. I published another book after this, and I'm currently working on the second in this series because,
of course, I turned my debut novel into a series.
So I decided I didn't want to edit it heavily. I wanted to do minimal editing, but I did want to properly proofread it. So I bought Pro Writing Aid and ran the book through that, and I tried to get all of the suggestions covered, and I tried to get all of the typos. Luckily there weren't a ton. I was really happy with that. I was very pleased with my own editing skills. They weren't great, but I was also really, really happy with the super hard work that my beta readers did, because they did do a lot of that early error proofreading catching that I hadn't caught the first few times I edited the manuscript before I published. So I did do that, and then I bought vellum and I formatted the book myself. The first time that I published, I used, like I said, Readsy's automatic editor. So this time I actually formatted it myself, so I was able to do the cover page the way I wanted to, adjust the font size. I ended up going a little bit bigger on the font than I will do in the future, but it's not bad. And so now I have a properly sized book. When I look at books on the shelf compared to the same word count in my genre, it actually feels like a book. And that to me was the best part. Just being able to like have it sit on a shelf and feel like a proper legitimate book, to have a copyright page that looked like a proper book. And so because of the edits on the inside, because of the new cover, I chose a groundwood paper instead of white paper. I did a lot of things differently, and I tried to stick more to industry standards. And so I published this as a second edition with brand new ISBN numbers for both the print and the ebook editions. And that's basically it. That's the nuts and bolts of what I did, what I changed, and the reasons for the changes were really just so that I could have a better foundation to build on and something that made me feel more like a legit author. Things that I think were really essential to helping me get to that next step in my career as an author, my next step in my journey as an author, and something I am really, really proud of. I'm sure I have more thoughts on my self-publishing debut story, but for now this video is far too long. It is long enough. I'm gonna have a super fun time editing this because I did not have any kind of plan for this. But I'm really grateful for you for sticking around and listening to this story, and maybe if you are looking at self-publishing, this helped you out, just hearing what somebody else did and how they, I don't know, made it work. Oh, so much talking.